All right. Welcome, everybody, to day two. Good morning to everyone, or good evening, wherever you are, whichever part of the world. Thanks for those who are present here today, as well as those who are watching live on our Facebook and as well as on our YouTube streams. Thank you for turning up today. And today I'd like to introduce to you Adreana Lee. She's a beautiful soul introduced to us by someone else who's giving a talk in this event later during the end. And she's someone who's going to talk to you about her transformation journey, and she'll let you know more as she goes on. She's a clairvoyant and a clairaudient soul, and she also is a Reiki master, and she has her own personal business, and she's a very good spiritual person. You should check out her Facebook as well. Without further ado, I'd let her start talking. Take it on, Adriana.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adreana Lee, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and what I do. I'm a past life regressionist. I do quantum healing hypnosis, which is Dolores Cannon technique. And I also am a Reiki master, and I also do spiritual counseling sessions. I work with people on a deeper level, emotional level. So I wanted to tell you how I actually got into this. I had some very amazing experiences. It actually started in 2014. A friend and I were getting ready to go on a trip. We were going on vacation. It was my first vacation ever going away with a friend out of the country. So we were both very excited, and it was in the middle of the night. So we took a train tram to the airport. And nobody was in the train tram. We got on, it was me and her, we walked on the train tram and we sat down. And I'm not sure if there was this being, because there was a being sitting at the other end of this train, but I'm not sure if this being was on it when we got on it or what happened. I don't even remember anyone being on it when we first stepped into this train tram. But so we sat down, and all of a sudden I noticed this being sitting across from me and her. This being looked not human looking. It looked like a gray alien / human hybrid, this being actually. And it had gray skin everywhere. The being was wearing clothes. He just sat there with his legs crossed, or I don't know if it was a he or she. I couldn't really tell, to be honest with you, but I'll try to describe to you what this being looked like. This being was tall, and it had no hair anywhere. This being was wearing clothes, and it also had makeup on, but it looked like the makeup was coming off in certain parts of the body. And then there was gray skin underneath. So this being had on blue jeans that were rolled up on the bottom. So I could see this being's legs that were gray, skinny, long legs, long fingers, no hair anywhere. This being had a hat on, and this, I don't know what kind of shirt this being was wearing, but it had like a leather jacket. And it also had the blue jeans. It was cropped up on the bottom, and it had black boots. And they went up a little bit around the ankle, and it was gray skin everywhere. And this being just sat there smiling the entire time, didn't say a word to me or my friend. I knew, at first I was a little scared, I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, what is going on here? But somehow telepathically, I knew that this being knew that I knew. So I just knew that this being was aware that I was aware that this was not that this was a being that I was seeing. And my friend, I knew that she knew as well. And she was very, very terrified, because we started talking about random things just to keep our mind off of it, because I knew she was afraid. So I was trying to make light on the whole thing. And I just kept looking back at this being, I wouldn't want to be rude and kept staring at this being, but, and so this being just sat there watching, and it almost like it was enjoying observing us. It just sat there with, watching with a big smile, enjoying watching me and her conversate with one another. And we got off the first stop that we stopped at, because my friend was terrified. So I didn't even want to get off, to be honest with you. But of course, we got off. And as I got off, I smiled at this being. And I got off the train, and this being just sat there still, didn't even move, was smiling the entire time still. And I walk out of the train, we both walk out, and I turn back and I look at this being, And this being was still there, just sitting there smiling, big smile. And then the train left. Nobody was around. There was no one around. It was in the middle of the night. So this happened in 2014. And 7 months later, actually, let me back it up before that, because my friend was like, hey, why don't we go to yoga? And I said, all right. I said, I'll go to yoga. And what I liked about yoga was the meditation part, because I was the type of person that had anxiety. I couldn't sleep at night. I had depression, all these things. So that to me seemed like a good idea, just 15 minutes of sitting there and not worrying about anything for those 15 minutes. So I really enjoyed that part. So I took that home with me and I started meditating 2-3 times a day. And I really liked that time that I had just of peace and quiet to myself. So 3 months later, after meditating for 3 months every single day, I had my first out-of-body experience. While I was meditating, all of a sudden, I am in a tunnel, a white light tunnel, and I'm moving in this white light tunnel and I'm going somewhere. And I thought, because I never heard about out-of-body experiences or anything like that. I grew up from a very religious family. So to me, I never heard of any of this stuff. So when that happened to me and I'm in this tunnel moving, I thought that I died while I was meditating. I thought I had a heart attack or something. So as soon as I started to panic and become afraid, I came right back to my body. And I was paralyzed for a few minutes. I couldn't move. And at the time, I didn't know why, but now I do. It's because I came back so abruptly to the body. We leave our bodies every night when we go to sleep, because our spirit doesn't sleep, our bodies do. So we're constantly going in and out, meeting with guides and loved ones and so on all the time. So, but when it happened to me, I was just aware, I was awake. So I took my my mind with me. So I was able to understand it all. So anyway, so when I came back to my body after I was terrified, I still didn't know what was happening. I thought that I literally had a heart attack and I died and maybe I came back. I had no idea what was going on. So all of a sudden I heard a voice tell me to look it up. So I did. I started looking it up and I started coming across near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. And I said, oh, this seems like something that would happen to me. I was in a tunnel, I was going somewhere, I wasn't in my body. So I said to myself, next time that this happens, I'm just going to relax and see where it takes me. So next time that happened, which was the next day, I went and I meditated. And 15 minutes later, or not even 15 minutes later, I don't even know how long, actually. I can't even say 15 minutes later, but all of a sudden I'm in this tunnel again. So I'm moving in this tunnel. Actually, before I even was in the tunnel, I'm sorry to back it up, but I felt myself rise out of my body and I went through the ceiling, through the clouds, like I was moving through the clouds, up, 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 and up. And all of a sudden I saw our planet and it was big. And then I was moving further away from our planet. And then all of a sudden I felt this force or this pull pulling me. So I felt like a gentle pull. And then all of a sudden I'm in a tunnel and I'm moving in this tunnel and I was going. It seemed like I was moving fast, but it felt very smooth. So I'm in this tunnel and I'm moving in this tunnel and all of a sudden I stop and I'm outside of this tunnel and I see planets everywhere, beautiful planets everywhere. I couldn't tell what kind of planets they were. I just noticed they were planets. And I just sat there for a little bit and I was amazed because, I love space. So to me, it was like breathtaking to see all this. And then all of a sudden I felt that pull again and I was being pulled to the side again. And then I was in another tunnel and this tunnel was different. It had more like colored lights, like aurora borealis lights. So as I'm moving through this tunnel, I all of a sudden get out of it and I'm in space again. And I see colored planets, red, orange, blue, green, bright, vivid color planets. I couldn't even believe it. And then I look down and I see this planet far away and it kind of looked like Earth. So once I noticed it, I started moving closer to it. So I started moving closer to it and the planet was becoming bigger and bigger. And as I got closer, I noticed that this planet wasn't Earth. It looked different. The land was shaped differently, or it just didn't look like Earth as I got closer to it. So as I got closer, I was moving faster and faster. And at one point I couldn't see anything. It felt like I was like flying right through the air. I was going so fast, dropping. And all of a sudden I hear hundreds of people chattering. I don't know what language they were talking in or what they were saying, but I heard them chattering, talking like you do when you go to a restaurant and you hear hundreds of people talking. That's what I heard. And all of a sudden, boom, I hit the ground. And it seemed like I landed on my back, even though I wasn't in my physical body. I still was aware that I was landed on my back. And I felt like I weighed 1,000 tons. So, and now I understand why. It's because we are on a low vibrational plane, and where I went must have been a higher vibrational plane because I felt really heavy. So, and then I stood up. It took like all of me to like stand up, and all of a sudden I see all these hundreds of light beings. They were like a silhouette of a human, but they were made of light. Light beings is what I call them. And they stopped talking as soon as I hit the ground. They knew that I was there, and they knew that I knew that they knew. so, so anyways, I turn around and I see this tall brown being behind me. And parts of the face were blurred out, and certain parts of the body were blurred out of this being, because this being didn't look human. It was like a tall, brown, almost alien type of being, but it still had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. So, and I could, even though I was blurred out, I could still see through it. And I understand now why it was blurred out. It's because, I would have been afraid if it wasn't blurred out, because at that time I wasn't ready for all that yet. So, but this being was being loving enough to, sort of protect me from that. So that's why it was blurred out, but just enough where I could still see this, that it wasn't a human being. So, and then, after that happened, I got freaked out. So I said to myself, because at the time, all I was aware of angels and guides. So I said, I want to talk to my angels and guides. So I turned around, and all of a sudden a garden appeared in front of me with a seating bench and a bird bath and trees and birds. And I knew that I had to go sit down, but the whole thing terrified me. So I came back to my body. And that was my first out of body experience, which really changed everything for me. I mean, I used to be afraid of death, really afraid of death before that happened, and once that happened, now I understood that there is no death. I mean, I wasn't in my body. And I've had more out of body experiences besides just that one. That was just the first one that really changed everything for me. It made me realize that life's not what I thought it was, and that we are eternal beings, and we're energy, we're spiritual beings, whatever you want to call it. There's many different names, but it means all the same thing, so. And that took me on a journey. Because I came from a religious family, so I never heard about out-of-body experiences. And even when I mentioned that, I did tell my family what happened to me. Some of them were like, came out with some crazy stuff, like, oh, maybe it was the devil, all these things, But they just didn't understand, what happened. But it was really an amazing experience. And then once that happened, I started looking into religions, because I wanted to know the truth about life. What was life all about? Why are we here? Why did that happen to me? What was going on? So I started researching all religions. And once I did, it took many years of researching a lot of things. So, and then I came to know, or to understand, that, religion really wasn't for me. Organized religion, like, that really wasn't for me. But there are truths in everything. There is truth in everything, but not a whole lot of truth in everything. So, after I started, researching all these religions, and I just started getting frustrated and angry, because I wanted to know what the truth was. I mean, this person has this truth, that person has that truth. What is the truth? If there's so many different ideas in this world, I wanted to know what the actual truth was. So I was actually angry with God. I was like, I wanted to know the truth. And I remember the day that I did it too. I was so frustrated, and I wanted to know what the truth was, and I demanded to know the truth. I did. And after that, I felt like I really was led on this journey of understanding something more, understanding the truth. Almost like a download, where I understood things, where I could see. I mean, I always been like, where I knew things in life, and when things would happen, I would know before they would happen. And I would be very connected intuitively with myself. And even with other people, it would just come out naturally as I'm speaking. So, but I never could realize that something like this could happen, and, to understand that this is who we really are. So anyway, once I went down that journey, and I put the whole religion aside, I started receiving information as far as why we're here and what life's all about, and how life is a reflection of our world, and our life is a reflection of our inner self. And to me, that was very interesting because I used to be the type of person that used to blame people or situations or whatever for how I feel. But really, we don't have control over what goes on with the world or with anybody else. The only thing we really do have control over is how we feel. And how we feel is determined by what we think, our perception. Our perception is everything. Life is all about perception. And, we can be hopeful about things or we can be fearful about things. It's really a choice. And we do have a choice. And that's the important thing. And this is what I teach. I do teach others. I kind of remind them of who they are and who we really are and how we have the power to make ourselves feel better. We have the power to heal ourselves. I mean, before all this happened, I was in a very depressive state. I mean, I was even contemplating at one point how fast I was going to drive my car into a tree. That's how bad I was, So, and then one day I was diagnosed with all kinds of things. I was diagnosed with anxiety. I was on antidepressant medication. I had a torn meniscus. I had blood pressure. I was borderline diabetic, all these health issues. And, they all went away. I never had surgery on my knee. I never took medication for anything. Everything just went away once I started realizing and taking responsibility for my own actions and my own part in the life that I've lived. And now I just try to see things. I know that everything that happens, there's never a coincidence. It's always for a positive reason. It's always letting you know something about yourself. And I know that when we get upset about things, it's really a message right there. And, it's not just about being positive and always focus on the positive, but of course that is great. But, things that happen in life aren't necessarily a bad thing like we think they are. They're actually here like a message for us to help us and assist us to grow and becoming more, because we're always in the process of becoming more and growing and expanding. Always. It never ends because we're eternal. So, and that's how it goes. So, and I wanted to tell you also the first experience that I had, we are all connected. We are all connected. So intuitively, we are all connected and we all have gifts. I don't like to call them gifts because they're really not gifts. It's just who we are. Everyone has abilities. Everyone does. Except everyone just doesn't realize it. We have this voice inside our head that's always talking to us, or this feeling or this intuition. What is that? That's your guidance. When you think a thought and the thought makes you feel bad, your inner guidance is letting you know, because you feel bad in that thought, that you're sort of off balance. You're not in alignment, or you have a negative belief, that's not in alignment. And that's what your emotions are letting you know. Because, our natural state of being is to feel good. The only time we don't feel good is when something happens. You wake up in the morning, you feel good, unless you're thinking about something or something's going on. And that's the only time that you don't feel good. So your natural state of being is to feel good. So when we don't, it's usually because we have bought into some kind of negative belief that's causing us not to feel good. Because there's many ways that we can see something, ourselves and others. There's many ways. And sometimes we limit ourselves into seeing one particular way that doesn't feel good. But your inner being is not agreeing with that way, or else it would feel good to think that. Like when you see someone, you say, you know what, I hate you. That doesn't feel good when you say that. Your inner being is not hating that person. That's why it doesn't feel good when you think that, when you feel that. But when you tell someone that you love, I love you, that feels good. Your inner being is agreeing with that. So we have this inner guidance that's always with us, guiding us, letting us know if we're on our path or if we're off our path. And it comes with our emotions and the things that we decide to believe. Because, a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking over and over until you believe it. So things that we tell ourselves, worrying and not trusting. The biggest thing is trust. That's for sure. Trust is a very big thing in this. Trusting on your journey, trusting your path, trusting that what you're receiving is correct, trusting that you're doing a good job. because you can't get it wrong. We can never get it wrong because there's no ending. There's no, place to get to where you're enlightened and it's the end. There's never an end because we are eternal beings. So we're always, always going to experience something else. And this is our one life that we have as this version of ourselves in this one life. Because yes, we do live many different lives, a higher part of us. But this version of ourselves is only one time. So, but the higher part of us is experiencing all versions because we are all that is. And all that is all that is. There can't be anything else. And that's what we are. We are an extension of all that is. And life reflects to us what we need to know, people in our lives. In reality, we're the only ones here. It seems like we're here with all of us together, but there's only one being in that source, or God, whatever you want to call it. So it's really up to us and how we choose to see the world that we live in and the people in our lives and situations that we went through. Anything that we put in darkness, we put ourselves there as well. So when you say that this person is not good or this situation is a bad situation, you made that dark. So you put yourself there with it. Because whatever you put in darkness, you put yourself there with it and it stays there because we're energy. So wherever you leave things off is where you pick back up. So it's not about ignoring anything. It's about changing the way you're viewing it to something else, because there's maybe, the way source views it is completely different than the way you're seeing it or the way that we see it. And when things happen, I always tell myself, especially when I don't feel good in that thought, like if I get upset about something or something's happening, I always say to myself, obviously I could feel that my inner being is not agreeing with the way I'm viewing this. So there's got to be another way. There has to be another way, obviously. So once I say that to myself, instantly I feel better because I sort of took that away. And once I do, then I start receiving a different point of view on it, which could be very, very different. And then I feel better because it's all about making ourselves feel better. We couldn't make ourselves feel worse. It is a choice. It's up to us. How important is feeling good to you? I mean, the only thing that matters is feeling good. Nothing else matters, no matter how much money you have or what you're doing or anything. If you don't feel good, then there's nothing that matters. That's the most important thing, is to feel good. And sometimes we have to be selfish, and that means also choosing thoughts and ideas that feel good, because you have to care about yourself enough to also choose thoughts and ideas that feel good. Because someone that loves themselves wouldn't do that. So it is about self-love and about, knowing who we are and becoming aware of who we are, especially at this time where everyone's going through something emotional, all of us. It's like everything that was hidden in the dark is coming to the light, because there's a lot of light shining on this planet right now, a lot of light, and everything that was hidden in the dark is coming out to be seen, to be reknown. And you could only reknow things in your life or re-see things that happen in your life because you're the only one that can think for yourself. No one else can think for you. So it is a very personal journey for us all. The truth is, no one can really assist us. We can only assist ourselves. I mean, we have others, and like people like me and people like, that do assist others in remembering who they are. But it's only because that person wants the assistance. So it starts with you. So now I wanted to tell you a little bit about this. Let me just check the time. Okay, I want to tell you a little bit about and how intuition works. And sometimes we ignore it too. We do ignore it sometimes. But I want to tell you a little story about my first memory that I have. Now, my first memory that I have, I was 2 years old, which is very young. But I remember, and this memory, I think things that happened in my life, it's almost like they happened just so I can ask questions, because it's just such bizarre things that happen to me in my life that it's just can't be a coincidence, and it's just too much of a coincidence and too weird for it to not be anything. So anyways, I was 2 years old, and I remember during that time in my life, we lived in a brownstone. I don't know if you know what a brownstone is, but we had apartments in it, and we were in the middle apartment that had a porch that you can see outside. So it was my grandparents' apartment. So we were in there. I was 2 years old, and I remember my grandfather being in my life, and my grandmother, and my mother. My mother had me when she was 16, by the way. So, and I don't remember there being like a dad or a father. So, and this day, I remember this memory is my mother went outside, and I was watching her from the window. Now, I was 2 years old, and I was aware of what was going on, just like I'm aware right now as an adult. So kids really know these things. So as I sat there, I watched my mother walk across the street, and she went up to this man, and she started talking to him. And they were both leaning against the car. And she comes back in and picks me up and brings me outside and introduces me to this man. And he gives me a bag of candy. And I knew that this man was giving me this bag of candy because he liked my mother. I knew that he was just trying to get me to like him. At 2 years old, I knew this. I was aware of this. Anyway, my mom ended up marrying this guy. And I actually didn't even know that he was not my real father until I was 21. When I was going to get married, I had to get my birth certificate. So that's when I found out that he wasn't my real dad. But I actually had a memory of meeting him my whole life. And I used to tell my mother that, but I never realized that it was him until, obviously I found out that he wasn't my real dad. But it was just so weird how that happened. And that was one of my first memories that I had. But I was very, very aware of what was going on. I knew his intentions. I knew that my mother, and she was being even nice to me too. It's like I knew her intentions. Kids know these things. So it doesn't matter what our bodies look like. We are all the same age. So that was that experience. And then, I wanted to talk about meditation as well. Meditation is you know what? Before I do that, I'm sorry I'm jumping around, but sometimes that's how it goes with me. I get these thoughts and I just jump around sometimes. I wanted to tell you about this one experience that I had that was really amazing experience. I was around 7 years old, and we were in the brownstone as well on the first level apartment. And it was at night, it was dark outside. And it was me and my cousin, and she's the same age as me. We were both 7, and my sister was 4 years younger than me. So we were playing. And what kids play, they don't pay attention to anything going on when kids play. So we were playing, and all of a sudden I hear this noise coming from my cousin's parents' bedroom. And I ignored it because I wanted to play with the Barbies. So I kept playing and I ignored it. And then I got this urge to pay attention to that noise again. So I ignored it again because I was in the middle of playing. And then all of a sudden I hear this voice to tell me, do you hear that? Do you hear that noise in the bedroom? So I had to tell my cousin. I said to my cousin, I said, is your parents in the bedroom? And she said, no, they're upstairs. Why? And I said, well, I keep hearing something in the bedroom. So we go and we open the bedroom door, and this guy ducks. He was breaking in and he ducked down. So that noise that I was hearing was him breaking in, and my guides were trying to warn me about that. So they kept pushing me to pay attention to that noise, even though I ignored it at first. So that was incredible. This guy, so as soon as we opened the door, this guy ducked down because I guess he had one leg out and one leg in the window. He was just coming into the window. And when we opened the door, he ducked down and we ran upstairs. And, my uncles chased him. I don't know if they didn't catch him or anything, but that was some experience that I had there too. And that showed me the inner guidance at 7 years old. There was something going on there. I always felt comfortable with myself because I always knew that we have this inner guidance. I guess I've always heard it. Maybe that's why. I didn't know that it was, I just didn't understand it. That's what it was. And most of us don't, we have a feeling, sometimes when we're in a rush and say we're going to get ready for work and we have a feeling, we get an idea to don't forget to grab your keys or whatever you need. And sometimes we say to ourselves, oh yeah, I'll do that later. You're getting that message at that moment because your guide knows that you're not going to remember later. That's why it's so important to pay attention right away so you can go grab those keys, because later, before you realize that you've left and you forgot the keys. So we get this guidance that's always helping us out. All of us have it. Sometimes we just don't pay attention to it, but we all have it. And it's all within us. And everybody gets it in all different ways. I mean, you can feel it, you can know it, you can hear it, you can see it. It works in many different ways, but every single one of us have all these abilities because it's who we are. We're source energy. How can we not? And even telepathically, we are connected. I mean, when you're thinking of, as far as spirit is concerned, when you're thinking of a loved one that transitioned, at that moment that you're thinking of this loved one, it's like you call them on the phone. They automatically and instantly come to you. So it's just like you're calling them on the phone. And we work the same way. Like when you're thinking of someone or you get thoughts of someone throughout the day, how do you know they're not thinking of you at that time? Because chances are they are. When we get thoughts of people throughout the day or even people that we haven't seen in a while, that's how connected we are. We just don't realize it. And we're actually becoming more and more telepathic as time goes by. I don't know if you've noticed that, but sometimes you'll just think of a thought at the same time as another person, or you'll think something and they'll say it, or vice versa. That's telepathy, because you don't know who's thinking, who thought that thought first. That's how connected we are. So now I wanted to see, I guess, do you want to do questions? Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? If anybody has any questions, let me take a look. 1 second. Oh, okay.
Adreana, this is Julia.
Hi.
Hi. Good morning from here and good evening there. So
Good evening, Julie.
hi. So I'd like to thank you very much for the session. It's really interesting and informative to really know about it. And I'd like to know, I'd like to
Hi.
know how do you differentiate between mind chatter and inner guidance?
Mm-hmm. Well, my inner guidance will never tell you what to do. It will never tell you anything that doesn't feel good. And it will never be against you or against anyone else. Because your inner guidance is pure positive energy. So it's nothing but, sometimes it's very blunt even. And it doesn't have there's no emotion with it. It's just very blunt. Your chatter would be, you can tell very easily between your chatter and your guidance, especially when you start meditating. I know at first it might be a little hard to tell, but not really, because your chatter is more like, I can't do this. This is not going to work well. I don't like this. That's our chatter. Your inner guidance is more like, of course you can do this. Your source energy, it's always something positive. That's how you can tell the difference. Do you practice meditation?
I personally don't, but
Right.
I try to be very aware of my everyday routine and whatever I'm doing, because I believe that being mindful is also very important.
That's why we meditate, to become mindful. But you can
Yeah.
do it without it. Of course, you don't have to.
Yes. And the other thing is, I'm actually the personal assistant for Fatima, and I also learned a lot from her to overcome her personal issues and to grow more. And in addition to that, I must say your insights today is really beautiful and very refreshing. So thank you very much today.
Oh, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, I don't know if anyone else has any questions, but you can always, I guess, raise your hand, or you could put it in the chat or whatever. But Now, I want to tell you some actually really cool experiences and that I had, because I had so many. One time I was meditating and I was home alone by myself in a quiet room. So I started to meditate, and all of a sudden I hear myself laughing and talking with someone and the TV on in the background. How do you explain that? When I was home alone by myself and me hearing myself, just like I can hear someone talking or I can hear myself talking right now. I had no idea what happened when that happened, but now I know what that was. It's almost like another reality of mine, because there's many different versions of reality. And, it's not like we changed the reality or the world that we live in. We change ourselves and then we line up. We enter that reality once we change. So that's kind of what happened with that. And that's how I realized it, was through that. I realized that there's many versions going on here, many things going on here, that more than what we could ever imagine. And I don't think there's ever an ending of knowledge where you can get to the end and you know it all. It's just something that goes on forever. From my understanding is that it's infinite understanding, infinite growing, infinite experiences that we have, infinite all. And I want to talk about some of my past life sessions that I have too, because those were interesting as well. And how we can have past life sessions and how we can tap into them is because everything is actually all existing right now. The past, the future, it all exists right now, just on another level. So it's like on another level of the bigger part of you is having all these experiences right now at all different times, except where you're focused on this. So that's why that you're not aware of that. But we do tap into all these versions of ourselves. And I believe that being on that train was even a future version of me, or even my friend. I don't know what that was, but I know that being that in my out-of-body experience, that brown being, that was a future version of me. That I know. But I'm not sure about the one on the train, the ET being. But yeah, so there are many versions of reality, many versions, an infinite amount, so many different experiences. And I think Earth is sort of like a school where we're just learning to shed, I guess, all these ideas and beliefs that are negative, that aren't true to who we really are, which is pure positive energy. So we keep coming back, or not that we keep coming back, we just keep having the same experience, technically, just in different bodies and different, we switch roles with people that we love. Everyone that's in your life now has been in your life before, just in a different role. But anyone that you love, you hold, they're with you forever, experiencing forever. You'll have experiences. And those that you don't love are also with you forever. Or because, that's a strong emotion. So it's like you sort of tie yourself to those you love and you tie yourself to those you hate. So in my opinion, you might as well learn to find something to love about those that you hate if you're going to be tied to everyone like that. Did you have a question? Oh, I thought I saw something. Okay. So I want to tell you about some of my past life experiences that I've been, that I've had here with some clients. I had this one lady that went back to a past life. She was probably in her 60s in this current life. And she went back to a past life where she was a female that lived on another planet. And the planet was, the relationships that they had on the planet were, there was male and there were female. And, but there was no marriage. So I think they only got together just to have a child. And they don't even raise their children in that planet. She said they have people that raise these children for them. It was just so interesting to hear that. And then she said to me that they asked for permission for all animals and all plants. They always asked permission before they would eat or consume any animals or plants, because they said animals have consciousness and so do plants. Everything has consciousness. So they always ask for permission to these animals and plants before they would consume them. I thought that was fascinating. And then when they transition, they go off by themselves in the wood and they lay under a quiet tree and they transition by themselves. That was amazing. When I heard that one, I thought that was fascinating. And let me think a couple other good ones that I had. I've had people that, I've had this one lady who in this life was a lady, and she went back to a past life where she was a male. And in this life, she was a Black female lady. She went back to a past life where she was a white male that had Black slaves. So it's almost like we switch roles to understand the other side. It's like you have to know what it's like to be on the other side. So we switch roles. And so we can see things from a different point of view. Because really, if you experience all things and you have no negative judgment towards all of them, you understand it. And that's the whole point. So that was very interesting, that session. And then I also have had people that were, they'd be married to someone in this life per se, and they would go back to they would go to a past life where they would be, say they were a female in this life, they would be the husband in that life, and their husband in this life would be the wife in that life. So that's interesting as well too, how we can switch roles with each other, because our soul is not male or female. We just take on these roles in this physical life. I'm a female, but who I really am is not male or female. We have both those energies in us, but there is no male or female. That's just the role that we're playing in, or the play that we're in. Because really that's what it is. We're pretending. All this is just pretend, because who we really are is so much more. I'm trying to think of some other ones that I had that were very interesting. I had this one session where this lady comes to me, and she had issues growing up. So with her grandfather in this life. So some kind of like, I guess she got sexually abused or whatever when she was younger with her grandfather. She explained that to me in the beginning as we were talking. And then we went into the past life session, and she goes, all of a sudden she's on a farm. She's looking at her farm, and, and it was, there was animals, and she described all that. And she goes in the house, and she was like a 12-year-old girl in that past life. And these people take on these personalities too. Some of them become these people again. Some of them even act like children if they're going to a younger age. It's amazing to see this. So all of a sudden she goes in the house, and I ask her to look around, and she describes it to me, and she sees her mother, and she's so happy. And she says she loves her mother and her brothers. And then she sees her dad. And all of a sudden, she starts crying hysterically when she sees her dad. So, and she says she doesn't like her dad. He's not a nice person, all these things. It turns out that her dad in that life was her grandfather in this life. The one that molested her, he molested her in that life and in this life. It's like you take things with you. When you have anything negative towards anyone, you bind them to you, and they come with you forever in another life, You play, and you never can escape that. So it's so much easier just to learn to see them in a different light, because anyone you put in darkness, you put yourself there too. And you can't escape it, because you can't escape yourself. So I thought that was a pretty good one too. And also, I had another session, which is very interesting, because this lady, when she first came to me, the first time we did it, she couldn't see anything. She kept saying, I can't see anything. I can't see anything. Nothing's happening. So I said, all right, go home, meditate for a couple of weeks, and then come back and we'll try it again. So she came back. Her session ended up being like a really amazing session. All of a sudden, she's hanging off a cliff. She sees her hands hanging off the cliff, and she sees herself hanging there, and that's the way she died in that life. So I couldn't understand why it was traumatic the first time. It's almost like your conscious mind tries to protect you in a way, so it didn't let it happen right away. So she had to go and meditate for her to see more of it. But and she ended up transitioning in that life. But she has a fear. And when she first came to me, she told me that she has a fear of flying. She doesn't know why she has a fear of flying, but she loves traveling, but she's just terrified of flying. She keeps thinking that something's gonna happen. So she goes back to a past life where she was a male, and a businessman that flew for business. And on the last day of that man's life, there was a plane crash, and the plane went into the ocean, and that's how he transitioned, in the ocean, which explains her now fear of flying. So it's very interesting how we take all these things with us. And, it's not even about, some people think that, some people say, you know what, I'm like this because of my past life or because of my past. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. Our point of attraction is right now. So right now is when we can change everything, regardless of when it happened, how it happened, because right now there is only now. So right now in this moment is when we can change things about ourselves, about others. And it's just all a matter of perception. That's all it is. It sounds so easy because it is. In the beginning, it wasn't easy for me either. Trust me, it took me time to get to this point, especially the place that I was at. But if I could do that, anybody could do that. If I could be at the place where I was contemplating suicide, anybody could do it. And, it's only because I really wanted to feel good, because normally I always felt good as a child. I would always be happy. And I always had that. And then as I grew up, I became a mom, I got married, and all these responsibilities and, all these things. And even my children, my son, he was diagnosed with high spectrum of autism when he was younger. And I didn't know any of this stuff back then. So I was thinking, oh, that's a terrible thing. It's a bad thing. All these things from the world that, that they tell us all these things. But really, and I remember a long time ago, I went to a psychic, and she was like the most amazing psychic. She's not around anymore, but she was incredible. And she told me that nothing's wrong with your son. And she was right. Nothing was wrong with my son. The world creates all these labels and all these ideas of what's wrong with us. You have this, you have that, you have this. Meanwhile, it's not that at all. These children that get labeled all these things, they're perfect the way they are. They're actually here for a message. My son helped me to release a lot of old ideas that I had, a lot of control, because sometimes we want to control the outcome of things in my life or others' lives, or, we want to control how my life should go and how it should look and how it should be. We have children that come and they show us something different. So everything is a message. Your children, your spouse, your kids, your loved ones. There's a message in every relationship. But as long as you're okay in your heart with these people, like anybody that you've ever had an issue with, or you're holding on to animosity, if you can let go of all that and just forgive them anyway for not being who you wanted them to be, and just loving them anyways for being them, accepting them from who they are. It doesn't mean that you have to live your life that way or you have to agree with what they're doing, but just forgive them anyway for not being who you wanted them to be. That's the biggest healing right there, is forgiveness, and forgiving ourselves more than anything as well. Forgiving ourselves is another big one. Because we can't get it wrong. No matter what we do, we can never get it wrong, because we are source energy. How could we get it wrong? Can God get it wrong? No. So we can never get it wrong. We can never, ever get it wrong, because we are eternal beings forever. So there's no rush. There's no, ending to get to where we have to rush around, and can take our time, and, it happens in our own pace. And, not everyone is aware of all the things that we're talking about, or even, aware of anything, stuff like this going on. But there are going to be more and more people waking up, and people like me and you and everyone who's listening are going to be a part of those people that are going to help assist the other ones to understanding more. It's like we all help each other because we all grow together. The world source could not exist without you, without me, without this microphone, without anything. Everyone, everything has its purpose. And we all help each other out, but just by being ourselves. We don't even have to go around talking about this at all. We could just be ourselves. And that is really what assists others. And, I used to have this idea of what perfect was like, and how, to be the good girl. And because, it was a religious background that I came in, you have to be a good girl. And if you do this, that means that you're good. And if you go to church, that means that you're a good girl. If you listen to your parents, that means that you're good. If you follow the rules, that means you're good. All these things about what good and bad was. And I was definitely, I grew up with that. And my parents didn't even let me go trick-or-treating. I used to trick-or-treat inside. We used to have a front gate in front of our house, and I used to be inside the gate trick-or-treating to kids walking by because they wouldn't let me go trick-or-treating. My parents were very strict, and I was sort of sheltered. But as I got older, I started doing my own thing. I started, even though my parents weren't allowing me to do things, I still found a way to do them anyways. Parents can't stop their kids from doing things, especially if when you try to do that with your kids, it just makes them think of other ways to try to sneak around and do things. You're better off having an open relationship with your child, like I have with my children, and it's because of the relationship I had with my parents, which I wasn't allowed to do anything. So as I got older, I started pulling away from religion and my parents and what's right and wrong. And I loved going to school. And it wasn't even because of the learning. I just loved hanging around the other kids, and having friends and doing that. So I actually dropped out of school when I was in 11th grade. I didn't even go to 11th grade. It was technically 10th grade. School just wasn't for me. I was more in it for the people. So, after I dropped out of school, I got married not long after. I was married very young, 21 years old. So I've been with my husband for a long time. And then once I had my children that's when I really started changing, especially about religion, because I thought about hell and I thought about me being a mother. And, I'm like, how can there be a hell? Like, what kind of God is like, if me as a mother, if my daughter or my son went and murdered someone or even murdered a million people, I'm still going to love my son or my daughter. I'm not going to punish them or put them in hell for eternity. And God's supposed to be more loving than me. So it didn't make any sense to me. And once I realized that, I realized that there can't be a hell. There just can't be. It just doesn't make sense. Unconditionally loving means loving without conditions. And that sounds like a condition. So I realized that there was no hell, at least when I had children. There couldn't be. It just didn't make sense to me anymore. So, and I think once I started opening up to all these ideas, besides the fact that my husband was not religious, he was actually atheist. So that helped me also to pull away as well. See, all these things took place in life. It was no coincidence. Even in meeting my husband was no coincidence. I remember that day specifically. My friend was waiting for me outside the car, and I was running outside the house trying to rush. And I was outside my door, ready to lock it. And all of a sudden I hear the phone ring. And I thought, my friend's here, so I'm not going to answer the phone. And I ignored it. I started walking. I turned my back and I started walking towards her car. And I had this urge to turn around and go answer the phone. It was such an urge. And I still ignored it. But then I had the urge again. So I turned around and I went and answered it. And it was somebody who wanted to introduce me to my husband. So there was no coincidence in that either. Like everything's divinely guided, whether we know it or not. And people that come here and give you a hard time, those are actually your best friends. They're the ones that love you the most because they come here as teachers to teach. And sometimes they come that way as somebody like a difficult relationship or even a child or whatever. There's lots of love on the other side for these people to take this role for you. And really, it's to awaken something within us. Lessons will keep repeating themselves until they're learned. They will. They'll keep repeating themselves until they're learned. And it's up to us we have free will, so we can decide how we want to feel. We can decide, how we want to view this person, that situation, what happened to me in the past, what you want to hold on to. It's really all up to us. We're the ones that control it all. And I just wanted to say that there's nothing really serious going on here. I mean, think about it. We're eternal beings. What is so serious going on here that's so important if you know that you're eternal? There could be nothing that's that important or that serious. when you know you're eternal? Think about it. You're eternal, so who cares? Anything, let go of things that don't serve you well, because who cares? There's a bigger picture. That's what I'm interested in, the bigger picture. There's a bigger picture going on here that's more than just what we see before us. Even in the world, what's happening in the world, it seems like it's a terrible thing going on, but we're in the process of healing, and so is the world. Just like when you cut yourself and you are in the process of healing, it doesn't look good while it's healing. Sometimes it could look terrible, even worse while it's healing, but it's still in the process of healing. And that's sort of what's happening in our world. We're all in the process of healing. So, and my advice would be, I would try to look for the benefit out of what's going on in the world and just trust that there's a good reason for everything. I would trust in my process. I would trust in someone else's process, in the world's process. Trust, because all is well. There, like I said, you can't get it wrong, and there's nothing serious going on. We are all eternal beings, and we're just having an experience, and that's what life is. It's just an experience, and you can make your experience great, or you can make it not so great. It's up to you. You get to decide. No one else can decide that for you, because no one else can think for you. It's all up to you. I love you guys so much. I so appreciate, it felt a little weird talking because I feel like I'm talking to myself, but I can see Fatima's face now, so that helped me a lot. But I really, really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. And I really, really appreciate everyone. And if you're interested, if you want to check me out on my website. Do I type it in or do I just say it? It's www.adrianalee.com, or you can send me an email at adriana@adrianalee.com. Thank you very much. And, do you want to say something about tomorrow or next speaker?
Okay. So firstly, it will help a lot, Adriana, if you could type it in our chat for your emails.
I will.
Okay. And the other thing is, this beautiful soul, everybody, agreed to do this for free. She's a wonderful person, and what she said today couldn't have made more sense for anybody on this journey. I myself am someone who experiences what you experience and totally agree with you, Adriana. And we're forever grateful to have you on this. Please keep us updated even more. We will also give you our email address in the chat below, so that if anyone has questions later on and still needs to reach us, we'll be able to do so at our personal email, and we will address it to Adriana. Thank you so much for today, and thanks a lot. And everyone, for those of us joining for those of you all joining on tomorrow, it's Brandon Hardley will be talking about cultivating your awakening at 7 a.m. Eastern timing, 28th of April, and 7 p.m. Eastern timing, 7 a.m. SGT, 12 a.m. UK timing on the 29th of April. Once again, thank you so much, Adriana. And thank you everyone who has been watching on our various platforms, as well as those going to watch the recording later. Love and light to all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.